Hello, you're listening to episode 13 of 8-Minute Movies, Alienated, a podcast talking about the 1979 movie Alien in 8-minute chunks, presented by me, Kieran, and him, Peter. How you doing today, Peter?
I'm good. Episode 13. Who would have thought we'd get here? I mean, we would have, because we counted how many.
Yeah, I mean, me,
episodes.
because I wrote a thing. It divided the film up into little chunks. There were 15 of them.
Yeah,
there were 15 episodes in the season.
We knew how many.
We all knew. Everyone knew. I think we say it even in some of the early episodes.
Yes. Sorry, I shouldn't have brought that up.
Of course, 13 is the unluckiest episode of any podcast.
Well, they say it's lucky for some, but I don't know what they mean by that.
I don't think they do either. Are you well?
I'm well, yeah. I'm pretty good. I'm relaxed. I have a couple of topics for today, a couple of diversions to prevent us from actually talking about Alien for a little while. If you'd like that.
Oh gosh, you're going to start us off with stuff that's not on topic. What an unusual shock.
Yeah, I've been looking at the episodes because they come up in my YouTube recommendations every time that you release an episode, and just watching the duration creep a little longer. And I know that it's not because we've got more and more interesting things to say about Alien. So the last one I think was 2 hours.
Do you want my hashtag life hack for when the episodes pop up in your YouTube recommendations?
What is it? Go.
I open them in a new browser tab, and I let them play all the way through while muted.
So
it's just get those metrics up, raise those numbers.
Yeah, I should do that as well.
Yeah, you should. We really got to get to the point where we're getting sponsors. I need to be making money off this thing, man. This is my side hustle. Would you like to buy some 8-Minute Movies merchandise?
Well, you can't.
Well, oh my god, why was it when I said 8-Minute Movies merchandise, the only thing that immediately popped into my head is like one of those pens, you know, those sexy seaside pens where you tip it upside down,
nice,
and
yeah.
like it's like one of us stripping.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh boy, yeah, that's oh fuck, I gotta look into how much it costs to have those made now.
You know what came into my mind, which would never happen, it is even less likely than sexy pens of us, is like box sets of the film that we're talking about, but each DVD is just one of the 8-minute segments.
Oh yeah, I love the idea of just being incredibly wasteful. No, if they're Blu-rays, you get you get 15 Blu-rays to watch Alien on.
It's VHS.
Oh god. Turn tape over. Oh god. So what are your tedious digressions this month?
Well, I've been playing a video game, so that's nice.
When you say playing a video game, do you mean differently than just clicking on a fucking sign to see if you can buy a digital house?
Yeah, I do mean that.
Okay, good.
I do mean different from that. I have been playing a game, I don't know whether you've heard of it, called Inscription.
Oh, I haven't heard of it.
It's Inscription with a Y in the middle rather than an I in the middle, so it's like crypt. Spooky.
Inscription.
Yes. Now, have you heard of a game called I think it's called Pony Island?
No, I haven't. How far down this rabbit hole are we going to go? Like at what point do we reach a game I've heard of?
Well, okay. Pony Island was a game that was released a few years ago, and it was one of those kind of instant runner.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, Cannibal style thing. Yeah. I vaguely remember this now.
Yeah, it's one of those infinite runner style games, but it gets super weird with it. And it was a little bit of a cult success at the time, and so people were highly anticipating whatever this maker came up with next. And I don't know whether he made anything in the meantime, and I've forgotten his name. I'm so badly prepared. I should say it. I should
Do you
look it
want
up.
to?
So
Do
that
you want
we
to go
say the
look it
name.
up and then say it, and I'll edit this to make it sound like you knew what you were saying. Listeners, I won't edit this.
Yeah, no, you're just gonna make me
I'm
look
just gonna
look like
make
a
him
terrible.
seem a fool.
Okay, yep, yeah. It is by a creator called Daniel Mullins of Daniel Mullins Games. So probably just basically makes these games on his own with a little bit of extra help. And I would say the thing about
Ding.
yeah, okay, fair enough. I'm not going to complain. We can explain why he said ding later, but yeah, that fair cop.
Ding.
So what I would say about Pony Island is that while it is really great at getting weird, the base Infinite Runner game of it is not very good. It's very rudimentary. It's just an excuse to make a game that gets very weird, basically.
Right.
And this new game, Inscription, is also a game which kind of breaks free of its bounds and gets very weird, but the basic game layer underneath it is also just quite good on its own. And what it is it's kind of a deck building card game. So it's in the vein of games like Slay the Spire, where you're trying to get through a route on a map, and as you do, you've got various different ways of getting and or modifying cards that you have in your deck, and you use those to enter different battles, and then at the end of the zones beat bosses, which allow you to progress on your path towards towards the end of the game. And the setting for it is you're in this kind of shack, and there's this creepy person. You for a lot of the game, you only ever really see his eyes peering out and his hands, which occasionally reach out towards you, and the rest of it is kind of dark, and for various reasons, you realize that you can get up out of your seat and explore around the room that you're in a little while as well.
Is it a VR game?
No. It's just a regular old computer game, and to go into what the game becomes beyond that would be quite spoilery, so I can't so I can't really get into it in any great detail, only to say that it really kind of stretches what you can do with that sort of game. It changes a lot. I would say it goes through two quite major changes through the course of its runtime, and really plays with its basic gameplay concept, and is just very clever. It's very atmospheric as well, just apart from all of the stuff going on, and a very weird game. The only downside I would say to it is that I think the basic game is so good that I would have kind of been happy just to play a more kind of straight version of that, without the extra kind of meta layers on top of it.
You're concerned they went too far the other way.
Yeah, maybe. I felt like the basic game was so enjoyable that I did the meta layers. Well, they were nice and they were cool, but it was almost annoying to be interrupted by weird stuff happening on top of that. But not only that, and I wish I'd known this so I could have got in at the ground floor of this, that on top of all of this, there's a huge kind of ARG layer to this game as well.
Right.
And so even if you kind of unlock all the game's weirdness, you can go a layer deeper and probe into things a little further and find these Easter eggs which give you clues to a whole layer beyond this, which is a big old puzzle, which I think has mostly been solved now. But if I'd have known about it at the time, would have been the sort of thing that I could have very easily got quite obsessed with, as I have done with a few of
Yeah,
those
I
sorts
was
of
going to
things
say
in the past.
usually preternaturally attached to any ARG whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, you know that I used to like that there was a collectible card series that was released years and years ago called Perplexity.
Perplexity.
Remember it? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what? I was looking at my collection of Perplexity cards today.
I don't know where mine are. It's
I
annoying me.
I look at them. I look at them every so often. And I think I should throw these away, but they're so nice, like all together. Like the art on them is so nice, and they're printed on such high quality cardstock. I could never bring myself to do it. It's a card game, a collectible card game with puzzles on it that was well finished 15 years ago. But I keep looking at them and going, oh, they are nice.
Yeah, they started a second series of it, but they stopped it quite a short way into the run, unfortunately. And that company has kind of moved on to other things now. And it was really good. It was exactly up my alley because you'd scratch these codes off of them and you'd enter them into a website in order to be able to solve the puzzles on the cards, and you'd get points for solving the different puzzles, and there were different uh, uh, colors which were related to the difficulty of the puzzles, but also the rarity of the cards, and it was just it was a thing that seemed designed specifically to ensnare me.
Mhm.
And I think probably at the time I spent quite a lot of money that I should have been saving for other things on those
Yeah,
cards.
that's a big chunk of the old student loan right in there.
Yeah, I really love that, and so similarly, if there's any sort of ARG involved in something and I can get in on it before it's been solved, I'm happy to do that. There were some puzzles associated with the game Fez. You remember Fez?
Yep.
That that I helped solve at the time and was very very proud of my
I
ability to
remember
figure out.
you got into the digital newspapers, didn't you, with
Yeah,
your
good.
solving of the Fez?
Got a little article because I solved one of the puzzles in Fez in a way that is slightly adjacent to the way that the Enigma machine was solved, which is that the nice thing there is that one of the methods they used to attack that cipher was to basically guess
Mm,
what the words near the beginning of it would be,
mm.
um, because
It was the
they
weather reports, wasn't it, that
yeah, the
that
weather
did them in the
report.
end?
So they'd guess what words might be at the beginning, and if they got that right, then that meant that they could then unpick the rest of the key or whatever it was for
Mm.
for that particular machine, and it was. It was a similar method that I used, finding a suitably obscure word for that could be in this encoded uh, encoded book in order to guess how it was scrambled. Yeah, so I like puzzles, and I think I'm not as good at some people as some people at puzzles, but I think I'm quite good at puzzles.
I often wish I had the sort of brain that could understand puzzles. I just look at them and I go, puzzle, and then I go for a lie down.
How would you like me to talk about a completely um, unrelated subject, but one that has nevertheless been on my mind lately?
Uh, is this Bovril?
It's Bovril.
What? Like you mentioned in the green room that you'd be planning to talk about Bovril, and I am both curious and afraid.
um, so some weeks ago, I went into a shop with the intention of buying some Bovril because I just had a Bovril craving. Do you ever have a Bovril craving?
I have never had a Bovril craving.
No, okay, it's fair enough. But I just thought to myself, you know what? I haven't had a Bovril in years, and it's getting a bit colder. I can imagine myself with a little warm mug of Bovril there, so I will get some. And I could not find it in any shops.
Gasp.
And so I was like, okay, never mind. I will have a Bovril tomorrow because I will order Bovril from the internet. And
Oh no.
I did this very kind of quickly without looking properly at what I was getting, and
Oh no.
accidentally ordered 6 jars of Bovril instead of the one that I thought I was getting. I now have too much Bovril.
That's it's very useful because I'm going to tell you now a real cocktail that people used to have back in the days before taste buds were invented was the bilk. Can you imagine what the ingredients are? Can you guess? I'll give you a clue. The B stands for Bovril.
And milk.
Yep, Bovril and milk.
It's funny.
It's just all the things that come out of a cow mixed together.
No, it's funny you should say that because I'm going to talk about that in a second as well.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Why?
So I was talking about this with a friend, and we ended up just looking on the because I described it. I was describing it as a beef tea, which it basically that makes sense as a description, right? And I noticed on the packaging of the Bovril, they also say you can use it as a spread, which I don't know, because on the face of it, it's just kind of a bit like Marmite, right?
Yeah.
But it's actually a lot runnier than Marmite, so I don't know about using it as a spread. It feels a bit weird to me. It would get everywhere, I think. But the other thing that it said on there is that it's made with water.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, less commonly, with milk. It says on Wikipedia. So it's like, that seems like a nightmare. That seems like it would be horrible having Bovril with milk.
Did you make a bilk?
So, but then I was like, boy, I've got to try it now, haven't I? So I made a mug of Bovril with milk. And it's going to be a bit of an anticlimax because it's fine. It just kind of tastes like a less strong Bovril. It kind of it mellows out the taste a bit in the same way that milk mellows out a cup of tea a bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it doesn't really interfere very much with the taste of it at all. I think the best use for this is probably just as a kind of prank when you're bringing someone a cup of tea, because that's what it just looks like after you put the milk in. And they think they've got a lovely cup of tea, and suddenly mouthful of Bovril.
Prank all your vegan friends with a with a jar full of bilk.
But the other thing, as I was talking to this friend, that we discovered was the origin of the name Bovril. Do you know about this?
I do know where the name Bovril comes from, but please enlighten the listeners at home.
Here, I'll just bring up the Wikipedia page so I can read this out so I don't get it wrong. Because
I think vril is the key part here.
This is wild. So the first part of the product's name comes from Latin bovinus, meaning ox. I don't think anyone is surprised by that. Bov, yep, we know it. Bovine is a word. We know all about bov. Johnston took the vril suffix from Edward Bulwer Lytton's then popular novel The Coming Race.
Yep.
From 1870, the plot of which revolves around a superior race of people, the Vrilya, who derive their powers from an electromagnetic substance named vril. Therefore, Bovril indicates great strength obtained from an ox. How about
that? When you start looking into the names we have for everyday things, you start picking them apart, and you're like, "This is really weird." Did we talk about Ribena before and where the name for that comes from?
I know that I've heard this before. I don't know whether we've talked about it on the podcast or not.
Yeah, I know we've talked about it, but yeah. So Ribena is another thing which it's a blackcurrant juice drink that's popular in the UK and probably nowhere else on earth. And the Ribena part of the name comes from Ribes nigrum, which is the Latin name for the blackcurrant plant.
Ah, yes.
I was like, I've reached my late 30s without ever being curious about why it was called Ribena.
Yeah, you just don't think of it, do you?
You just assume it's like a gibberish name, but they're like, no, it's a contraction of the Latin name for the blackcurrant,
or like it was invented by Sir Charles Ribena or something.
After one of his daughters was tragically crushed in a blackcurrant press.
Yeah.
Bovril though, like I have nothing against Bovril. I have had it in the past. I got to admit, I've never ever done any of the things on the packet it tells you to do with it.
No,
you just eat a spoonful of it when you want to eat something that's kind of like a cow fell in a blender.
Yeah, I mean, now that I've had a mug of Bovril with milk, I suppose I've got to try the spread thing at some point and report back.
Yeah, do you know what it is? You just end up with sort of like beefy toast.
And just one more thing on Bovril. If that whole thing about the novel called The Coming Race and
yes.
The superior race of people, if that sounds a little bit kind of fascisty to you, then I'm not saying I'm not saying that Bovril is a Nazi drink. I'm not saying that. I mean, it's got the same color scheme as the swastika, exactly. But that's just a coincidence. I'm not saying, because I know that people are going to write in and say that I think that Bovril is a Nazi drink. I'm not saying that. I'm there are just a few red flags that have the same color scheme as Bovril. But I'm not saying that. I just want to make it very clear that I do not think that Bovril is a drink for Nazis, drunk exclusively by Nazi people, because I'm not a Nazi.
Like, before you went on a lengthy tirade proclaiming Bovril to be the one true drink for the Fourth Reich, I was going to suggest that maybe we try and get them to sponsor us for this episode. However, now I think we need to get someone else to sponsor us to defend us against legal issues.
Well, no, they should sponsor us, because I've made it extremely clear that it's not the position of this podcast that Bovril is a Nazi drink.
I want you to stop saying that. Oh my God, Jesus Christ. Anything else trapped in your brain that needs to get out? Any other like weird substances from the distant past you decide that you need to fuel yourself on this day?
No, it's all out there now. Why don't we move on to you and how you are and all of the things you need to get off your chest?
Oh God, I don't even know if I have any this time. I am okay. I'm doing okay as usual. Everyone's doing okay. What exciting stuff! Bought a new oven. Yeah.
A new oven?
Yeah, new oven. Yeah. Because the other one, the previous oven, is broken.
So tell me about the breakage of this oven.
So it's like 30 something years old. So what's happened is it's just broken because it's old.
It's just good old entropy.
I mean, big mood. Am I right?
Yeah.
But now it's a gas oven and it only has two settings now: off and terrible blazing inferno. So
Okay.
so the oven can either be off, where there's nothing cooking inside it, or on, and you can cook a roast in like 2 to 3 minutes. It's not very good, though. It turns out that just making it hotter is not the solution to cooking things faster.
No.
Well, I mean, it is. It's just not, they don't come out edibly at the end.
Yeah, and they won't necessarily be cooked well.
Mm.
So, as we know, I recently bought a television, and we learned that televisions are just getting weirder and weirder. I need you to reassure me that ovens are still basically normal.
Yeah, this one is a dumb oven. It doesn't plug in or anything. We did look at getting like a fancy electric oven, but it turns out in order to do that, the house is so old that they'll have to basically take the entire house apart and put it back together for that to be possible. So we're like, well, not this time. Maybe in another 20 years.
Okay, so it's feasible just to get a normal oven that behaves in the way that people over the age of 35 or so can understand.
Yeah, it doesn't have an app. It certainly doesn't have an app. Do you know what? It has one smart function, and I use the word smart there quite wrongly.
Okay, right, go on. What is it then?
The top oven, it has 2 separate oven compartments. Oh, what did there was a word for it that they used on the website, and I can't remember what it was. Like cavities, that was it. Yeah, like a word that you normally wouldn't use. Yeah, not positive connotations. Yeah, the top smaller cavity can be a grill or function as a second oven. There's like a dial, you can turn it either way. Yeah, that's state of the art shit compared to the terrible one we had before.
With cavities, I usually think about bad teeth.
Teeth.
Yeah, it's not the best. They could come up with compartment would have been fine, wouldn't it?
Yeah, compartment was the one that popped into my head, certainly. I had to struggle to reach cavities from there.
Yeah.
If the main cavity sounds like something you'd find in the mystery flesh pit or whatever.
That sounds like what I had to get filled at the dentist the other week.
Yeah, new oven. That's good. That's turning up at some point. And then I'll put it in and I'll report back on whether you can cook food in it. Brackets, I assume we can.
I tell you what, why don't you only report back if for some reason you can't cook food in it, which would be way more interesting to
No. Now we've established that I'm going to talk about whether I can cook. I'll review some food I cook in it. How about that?
All right.
Oh god, I've been rereading a series of, I want to use the word trashy, but I think the author probably wouldn't like that. What's a more polite way of saying trashy, Peter?
Light.
There we go. I've been reading a series of light steampunk adventure novels, and they're quite fine. They're a way to pass the time. I'm not hugely into the steampunk genre, but I like Victorian stuff, and sort of scratches that itch.
Do they have a name?
They do.
Are you going to say it?
Yes.
All right.
I'm just starting the Kindle app on my phone.
These are some memorable books.
The book series is called The Newbery and Hobbs Investigations. And Newbery is a Victorian gentleman, like a man's man, debonair, suave, all that kind of stuff. Shame he's super addicted to opium. And Miss Hobbs is his beautiful assistant, who is also secretly. Should I spoil stuff? She's also secretly a spy working for the Queen. He works for the Queen too. There, okay. Victoria. Yeah, there you go. Both spies, but they don't know that each other is spies until like book 3.
I see.
Yeah, and they're fine. They're fine novels to read. I mean, like, don't expect Shakespeare, or
Look, I'm just happy that you didn't open up your Kindle and say, "Oh, it's called The Coming Race."
no, I keep those books in print. Oh god, yeah. No, there's like 5 or 6 of them. I was reading the Osiris Ritual. That's what got me back into them. When there's an unwrapping being performed of a mummy they've brought back from Egypt, and terrible things ensue. Perhaps a curse. Ooh. But I've never really got on with steampunk. I mean, these are fine to read, but like the thing where it's like, okay, so like a steampunk aeroplane, like I could get behind that, right? But in these, they've got things like a doctor performing like microsurgery that we couldn't do now, and I'm like, well, how is he doing that? How is the steampunk helping him with that? How is steam assisting in this process?
I think for me, and this is purely a personal issue.
Aren't all of your issues personal issues?
Yes. I just struggle with the concept of alternate history in general, I think, because all I can think of during it is, yeah, but that didn't happen. It wasn't like that. If it's a complete fantasy world, fine. I'll just immerse myself in it and be fine. Like all of this isn't real, but when bits of it are real, but some things happen differently, there's just something that psychologically doesn't sit with me. Because I'm thinking, yeah, but the Nazis didn't win. So
yeah, listeners, it was an absolute trudge to get through Wolfenstein with him like this. Periodically being like, but we won the war. Yes, Peter, I know we won the war. This is a fiction.
I know it's a what if kind of scenario, but it's like it feels like the uncanny valley of fiction to me, because it's like historical fiction, but some major things are just off about it.
See, I guess, yeah, it's the same with the steampunk stuff for me, because it feels like something that I should like. I'd be like, oh, I love that. Lap that up. Lovely steampunk, great. However, it's just when occasionally it dips into the bits of like, well, this is just magic, I guess. There's a guy in one of these novels who has like an artificial eye, like that sends signals to his brain and is like, as good as a normal regular eye. And I'm like, we can't do that now. We've got microprocessors. Like what how big would a steam powered rod logic computer that could interface with it'd be the size of like St. Paul's Cathedral. You'd have to wheel that fucker around behind him everywhere.
Yeah, I think maybe it's what it is that it very often it's kind of used as a kind of aesthetic, isn't it? Without actually any attention paid to how this would actually practically work.
Yeah.
And that's fine, because like it's a cool kind of aesthetic. A lot of people like that, and I understand why people think that's cool. But I think we both quite like hard science fiction books and that sort of thing,
that's my preferred genre.
Where they go often into quite some detail to how they think a thing would work in practice. And I suppose it's a bit jarring to step into a genre where often there's very little attention paid to the kind of practicality of something, and it's just, oh, look, don't worry about it, it works, it looks cool.
How does this work? Magic, perhaps.
Yeah.
To give them some of their dues, there is like a supernatural bent to the series as well.
Yeah.
So there may be more to these things than just he's a really good surgeon. But I don't know. It's the only part. Like I enjoy reading it, but like, I mean, they've got things that are like feasible. Like they have airships and submarines, which are both things that you could do with that level of technology. I just think it's when it's like reanimating a corpse with things that we would struggle to do now.
Yeah, like fantasy and magic. I'm fine with that being the conceit in books or something. It's just it's not as interesting to me as when there's something that has some sort of explanation, and they might be taking a few liberties with science, but they basically are explaining how it would work within the fiction.
Oh god, the only other thing I guess I've been doing recently, a friend of mine, Kay, has started watching all of the Hellraiser movies in order, and that's dragged me into watching all of the Hellraiser movies in order. And oh boy, so there are 2 good Hellraiser movies, and then they made 8 more.
Now, how many Hellraiser movies do you think I've seen?
Is that season 3? Is this what we're talking here? Do you want to do Hellraiser?
I wouldn't say I want to.
See, Hellraiser as a film isn't even really that shocking anymore. I mean, I think you wouldn't find it distasteful or anything. I mean, it's not as gory as The Thing, even. Well, I suppose I'd say they're about the same, maybe. Yeah.
I feel I might have said this in a podcast before, but I remember seeing the cover of it in the local kind of video shop, and finding that quite unpleasant to look at. That's what I remember about Hellraiser.
Yeah, well, he's not the prettiest dude in the world.
All those pins, right?
Yeah, the pins.
Yeah.
His name is Pinhead. Well, sort of. That's sort of his name.
Yeah. See, I, as a, let's say, 8-year-old, would go into video shop and look at that cover and think, I want nothing to do with that. No, thank you. What's this? Back to the Future? Great, let's rent that again. You, on the other hand.
So, yeah, I don't know when I first saw a Hellraiser movie, but what I think happened was my brother was watching Hellraiser 3. Okay. And I watched some of that along with him because I have vivid memories of bits of Hellraiser 3. And Hellraiser 3 is the worst Hellraiser movie.
I was going to say, is that one of the good ones? And apparently not.
No. Hellraiser 3 is... people would argue with me saying it's the worst one but it's down, like, it's saying which Hellraiser movie is the worst one is like saying which of these dead possums in the sack is the worst one. You know what I mean? They've all got their different squishy, gross features. But 3 has Pinhead. Well, he starts off the movie stuck in a statue. Then he sucks off a woman's skin into himself to become a real person again, like a real hell demon Cenobite thing. Then he kills a bunch of people and he turns them into Cenobites. But do you know the Cenobites from Hellraiser? They're the creepy people on the cover, basically.
I've heard the phrase, but I couldn't tell you anything.
So hilariously, they're called the Order of the Gash. Okay. And wow. Yeah, I know, cool. And they are humans who they went so deeply into the realms of BDSM, I guess, that they ended up not knowing where the distinction between pleasure and pain lies.
Right.
And so they've sacrificed their lives to this magic puzzle box. You solve the puzzle box, thinking that they're going to turn up and like wank you off or whatever. And what actually happens is they appear and you get the hooks. They rip you apart with hooked chains and are like, "Did you not enjoy that?" And you're like, "Not really, no."
Yes.
But they all get killed at the end of Hellraiser 2 for boring reasons, and so he creates 5 new ones. But the ones he creates are obviously. So, he's got his classic design with his pins through his head and all that. And like his torn open things and his dangling sort of butcher knives that he's got festooned around him. And the other sort of original ones had these sort of like timeless quality to them. The ones he creates now are very 1990s.
Right.
So what he creates is a man. Well, he was a cameraman in life, so as a Cenobite, he's got a camera in his head that like a big old VHS camera that he can use to kill people with.
Okay.
One of them, well, I feel like they were really getting to the dregs where she smoked a lot in life, so she's got a cigarette that she can burn people with.
Okay.
And possibly my favorite, he was a DJ in a nightclub who got killed, so now his face has like a CD shaped slit for her mouth, and he can fire CDs out of it that kill people.
Nice.
Like aggressively 90s monsters.
Are they very sharp CDs?
Yeah. Well, I imagine so. They kill people. I like if one of them had mini discs that he could whip around and kill people. I don't know, or like a shell suit or something. Yeah, they are very 90s monsters, and they don't make any further appearances in the series after this film. I think they realized it was a bit of a misstep, but yeah, Hellraiser 3 not the best of the bunch.
But that was the first one that you saw any of.
I recently the one I'm up to in this terrible idea of rewatching them is actually Hellraiser 6, I think, which is called Hellraiser Deader, as in like more dead.
And how many did you say there were in total?
I think it's either 9 or 10. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I mean, that's not a great number for a series that maybe peaked at 2.
Deader was surprisingly good when you consider a few factors. Number one, it got made because if they didn't make a new Hellraiser film, they would have lost the IP rights. It was filmed in a couple of months in Bucharest, and it was shown in like 3 cinemas, and it eventually really sort of shamefully released on DVD a few years later. Yeah, given all that, it's not too bad.
Fair enough.
There are worse Hellraiser films.
All right. Are we ready?
Are we ready? Are you ready?
Am
I ready? Are we both ready? So, my new notes for this section say introduce the concept, but fast.
Right. Okay. Which one of us is going to do that?
I'm gonna do it. So you can follow my lead from few. They say it is best to change the format of your podcast in the third from last episode.
Yeah.
So this is a podcast where we listen. That's not even
you've already got it wrong.
I've already got it wrong.
Yeah.
You've ruined me, Peter. Why did you?
If anything, this is going to take longer now.
Yeah. So this is a podcast where we watch the movie that we started to talk about, in this case, Alien, in 8-minute chunks. If you have been listening to them all sequentially, good work. You are doing it successfully. If not, go back to the first episode and listen to that. There, that's good, right? Succinct?
Yeah.
And now I'm also going to introduce the game with the bells. I've moved that up so that we can, it's in a more rational place in the podcast.
All right. So what is the reason you said ding at me earlier while I was telling people about my lovely digressions?
So we got these bells, right? If you press the bell, it goes ding, 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 ding. And they go ding when we say thing. Wow, that rhymes. Why did we never think of that earlier?
Well, we have referred to it as a thing dinger.
Yeah, I know, but we didn't think of putting it in the form of a haiku. Which that certainly wasn't.
You can remember what the rules are now.
Yeah,
using a simple rhyme.
Many verses. You press the bell if the other person says thing, or they say was it Giga or Geiger? Which one? I can't remember.
If they
Geiger, like Geiger counter, yeah,
because that's not how you.
Because that's not how you say his name.
You say Giga or something like that, but probably someone who is better at pronouncing names in... Where is he from again?
He is from Zurich.
Names of people from Zurich will correct us on that, but it's something like Giga.
Okay, that will probably do for now then. Before we get into let's not talk about the thing, we actually have to start this episode with an apology.
An apology? Why?
Well, do you remember last week we spent a lot of time talking about weight bait?
We talked about weight bait, which is was our term,
the oral equivalent of clickbait.
Yeah, don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more information about that later on in the show, kind of shenanigans.
Yeah, jokingly at the end of the episode, I said I better look it up on Urban Dictionary and see if there's an entry for it. And I forgot to do it before I published the episode.
Okay.
So Peter, there is an Urban Dictionary entry for weight bait.
You astound me.
What do you think it means?
It's got to be something about sex.
Come on, that's just everything on Urban Dictionary.
I think it's a term for when someone's stringing you along, implying that they're going to have sex with you.
Right. Okay. The definition from Urban Dictionary is items on the shelf of a checkout line put there for you to take while waiting to pay.
Okay, all right.
That's quite sweet compared to the usual stuff.
Not as filthy as I was expecting.
No. I'm like, well, when I looked it up, I was like, this is gonna be something fucking appalling, right? I mean, but no, quite mild, really, quite mild. So, let's not talk about the thing.
All right, so this is the segment of the show where you bring a topic that you have researched that is adjacent to the film that we're watching, Alien, but not directly related to this 8 minutes.
Right? Yeah, I'm very pleased you said researched rather than like just look on Wikipedia for 2 minutes, which is
I'll be honest, with the last one, I was reading along the Wikipedia page as you were saying the words, and it was very similar.
It's it's open content, it's allowed. Don't sue me.
Just a word changed here and there. They have algorithms now that check if you're doing that in with like school essays and stuff.
Well, fortunately, they haven't rolled them out to podcast recordings yet. If you like that one, this one is definitely almost identical. So
brilliant. Life hack, you can skip half this podcast if you just hear the topic and then just do a bit of reading on Wikipedia.
Go to Wikipedia.
Then you can join us during the juicy bits that we're going to get to later of the actual 8 minutes.
I'm definitely gonna we're definitely gonna lose this part of the format in future. If we ever get to season 3. Let's talk about Yaphet Kotto.
All right, tell us.
Yaphet Kotto was born November the 15th, 1939, and he was an American actor known for numerous film roles, as well as starring in the NBC television series Homicide: Life on the Street. His most well-known films include the science fiction horror film Alien, which is why we're talking about him, the science fiction action film The Running Man, and the James Bond film Live and Let Die.
Ooh, that's one of the ones I've seen.
Wow, there you go, listeners. Peter has seen a film. Right, this is a momentous day. Mark that down on your calendars. The day Peter knew a film. He also appears in The Puppet Masters, a fact I thought I'd draw attention to because I like the film a lot. It's kind of a cross between The Thing and Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
All right.
Yeah, it's got Kiefer Sutherland's dad in it. Donald Sutherland? Yeah.
I think that's right.
I think that's right as well. By the age of 16, Kotto was studying acting at the Actors Mobile Theatre Studio, and at 19, he made his professional acting debut in Othello. His film debut was in 1963, age 23, in an uncredited role in 4 for Texas. He was sent a script for Alien off the back of his recent success with Live and Let Die, and it ended up being a little uncomfortable for him. Many of the sets for the Nostromo were barely tall enough for him, as he was 6'4".
Ah.
You can see it in a lot of the crowd scenes where he's standing in the background. He will be hunched over, and everyone else won't be because he's so much taller than them.
Well, I suppose that's realistic. That's a problem tall people would genuinely have on spaceships where there's limited space.
Why would you get a job working in space if you were easily a foot taller than all of your coworkers? Unfortunately, he passed away quite recently on the 15th of March 2021 at the age of 81.
Yeah, I remember when that happened.
Yeah, it happened quite recently. I think we may have been recording the podcast earlier in the year while it happened.
Yeah, I think actually it had happened very shortly before we started recording this series, because I remember mentioning it when we were initially going through the cast and trying to figure out
that sounds about right. Right, so what's next? So we've got to go through your answers to the important questions from last time. You said, who's infected? Maybe still Dallas. And I think you're going to get your answer in this bit. I know you don't think you have because you've watched it already and you haven't seen it, but I'm going to show you a deleted scene, a director's cut, an outtake. Ooh.
Okay, you've been alluding to this for... in the green room, as you put it. You've been alluding to this.
Dallas's ultimate fate. We will find out. And you said, what happens next? She turns the self-destruct off. So you feel confident about that one?
I think I get half points for it.
Do you think that?
I do, yeah, because she does indeed attempt and nearly succeed to turn the self-destruct off. But the thing that I didn't remember is that she fails to turn the self-destruct off.
If you're at the Olympics and you're getting a silver, you've still lost. You don't get any points for that, do you?
Well, I mean, who gets gold in this context? Who am I up against here?
Me?
That's hardly fair. You research these episodes. You know all of the facts.
The real...
it's like that Sherlock Holmes game where I've solved Sherlock Holmes solved the crime in 3 moves.
The real monster here is capitalism, Peter.
I mean, yes, but not highly relevant to this current discussion. Okay, fine. I'll go with whatever scoring you decide, but I claim the moral victory, or the moral half victory. I sort of knew what was going to happen next.
You will receive a third of a point.
Okay.
And your last answer, who dies next? And you said the alien. Oh, bold choice, sir. Bold choice. I don't really feel like any of these questions are going to change from here on in, but we are really stuck hammer and nails to this format. So we're going with that. We're going expect these questions again.
Yeah.
With all those words said, it's time to start looking at the episode with our eye. So we're going to be covering 1 hour and 36 minutes to 1 hour and 44 minutes of Alien. As always, we tell you it's not a watch-along podcast, but do what you like. We're not your bosses.
Mm-hmm.
I met a friend of mine who I haven't spoken to for a while the other weekend, and he was like, oh, I really like your podcast. I really like just watching the movie in 8-minute chunks and just listening to it. And I was like, that's not like, we expressly tell you not to do that. Why are people so bad at following instructions? Oh, is it us or are the children wrong? I don't know.
Why? Tell us, listeners, why are you so disobedient?
Yeah, right. Each of you write an essay about why you can't respect the rules of our format. Right. So, we're going to go through it in the traditional way. I think we have less to say about this episode than usual because a lot of this episode is just Ripley running through the ship, but we'll get to that, I guess.
Well, I suppose it's a natural thing with stories, really. We've been in this setting for a while. There's only so much that can be in this fairly confined setting of a spaceship. All of the threads have been introduced now, and we're in the process of rapidly bringing them to a conclusion. So most of the stuff that we're about to see is stuff that we've seen before, but with some running around and tense bits.
I'll tell you what, listeners, if this section of the podcast is shorter than the section of the podcast wherein we just talk shit, you can burn us with a cigarette the next time you see us in person. How about that?
I don't think we should... I don't agree to this.
Oh, it doesn't hurt that much. It's fine. There was another thing I was going to say. I'll tell you what, to bulk out this one, at some point during it, I'll drop in one of the facts we've already used just to bulk it out a little bit, just a little bit of filler. I'll tell you that Jonesy was 4 cats. You little forgotten that by now.
What if you did a different one, and if you spot the already said fact and write in...
Then I'd have to go and look up another one from the podcast notes, and I'm not doing that. That's the only one I could remember off the top of my head.
All right, go on.
Okay. The emergency destruct system is now activated. Yeah,
activated.
We got the last word from last time, where if it had only been like a millisecond longer, we'd probably have caught it.
We were all in suspense about what it was now, but it turns out it was just activated.
The ship will detonate in T-minus 10 minutes. The option to override automatic detonation expires in T-minus 5 minutes. So you've got 5 minutes to rethink your decision.
Yeah, and it did say that on the little panel.
It did.
So
it did.
If you are reading that, you got a little hint at that in advance.
Ripley runs from the room as alarms blare through smoke-filled corridors.
Mm-hmm.
So the vibe here is that the self-destruct system stops supplying coolant to the engine. That's what blows it up. So it obviously doesn't take long for the coolant to start to heat up, considering now the ship is just spraying weird gas in every single corridor.
Yeah. It's, I suppose, well, if it can blow up a whole ship in 10 minutes, it's got to start heating up pretty quickly, I suppose.
Right. So here we're going to have our little digression. We've got a digression within the main podcast itself. We've never had this before. We probably fucking have. I'm gonna show you a director's cut scene because we talked about Dallas so much that we have to know what happens to him.
I think, in fact, last time you showed me a little clip of a deleted scene of the alien attacking.
We did.
So this is literally precedented.
Okay, but well, it's unprecedented in that scene never made it into a viewed version of Alien. That has always been a cutscene. This scene was reintroduced in the director's cut to create a sort of cyclical life cycle for the alien.
Okay, it's mildly unprecedented.
Yeah, mildly unprecedented. It's similar to, but legally distinct from the precedented scene in last week's episode.
Okay.
I will show you a thing.
All right.
Yeah, so there you go. So I showed you a director's cut scene where some bad stuff happened to Dallas. We find out what happened to Dallas. I'm going to talk about it now. I know we went through the theatrical cut, but we got so excited talking about Dallas, I guess we have to interject this now.
Yes.
So we start off with an excellent shot of Ripley climbing down a ladderway with the camera slowly spinning around her as alarm lights spin above her. And that shot is very interesting in and of itself because that little ladderway was built for the bits where Dallas is exploring the air ducts earlier.
Right.
And it was suspended 25 to 30 feet off the floor at Shepperton Studios. And in the first shot of it they had a stunt woman like with a safety harness in there. coming down, like crawling down, but Ridley Scott stopped it because he was like, I can see the wire, and B, you can tell it's not Sigourney Weaver because the stunt actress is much shorter than she was.
Right.
So Sigourney Weaver had to do the stunt climbing down the thing like without a safety wire above a 25-foot drop. And to make all the ladders look visually more interesting, they'd slathered them all with grease.
Great.
And she was like, yeah, the one stunt in Alien where I could legitimately have fallen to my death doing it, and they never used it. It didn't make it into the theatrical cut.
I don't know. You think they'd put a mattress down or something?
I think after that sort of fall, maybe it doesn't matter so much. There's probably like laws now. We've spoken about this before, but movies from the past tend to be like, well, perhaps the actors will die.
It's good to unglamorize some of this stuff.
She comes out into the engineering space we've seen earlier, and the sound drops off dramatically here. It's much more muted. You get the sort of faintest echo of Mother still doing the countdown. And she hears a groan and approaches it and sees Dallas webbed to the wall with alien resin, the lower half of him encased in the lip-like structure of an oversized alien egg. And she turns and sees Brett in the same, but his egg is much more regular size now, shrunken. So it looks like they're being transformed into eggs.
Yes.
This scene is a little unclear because it sort of looks like they're being turned into eggs, like they're literally becoming them. But the script is clear in that they're both just serving as sources of nutrients for the new eggs. The eggs are digesting them and like building themselves up out of their bits.
Yeah, I mean, without being able to kind of see clearly what was happening, that was kind of what I figured.
Mm.
And I feel like, I must have seen this cut at some point because
I mean the theatrical cut of it, the director's cut of Aliens isn't like a thing that a lot of people haven't seen. I mean, it came out in 2003, and Ridley Scott wasn't thrilled about doing it because he felt that it was more like, they just wanted something to be like, oh, new cut of Alien. But this scene has always been kind of famous, so I guess that's why it got dropped back in.
Yeah, so I suppose that was my memory of why Dallas might still be a little bit alive.
Well, he throatily begs Ripley to kill him, and she burns him and Brett with the flamethrower, and that's the end of the Dallas conundrum, which is definitely a 70s spy novel.
Indeed.
There are actually some lines for Ripley here that got excised from the scene as well, where she says to Dallas, like, don't worry, I'll get you down. And he's like, no, it's eaten too much of me, just kill me. Yeah, gross. Brett is quite clearly too far gone. So it's an interesting little scene that sort of, if it had been in the film, it would have given a cyclical life cycle to the alien. It starts as an egg, comes out as a face hugger, which turns into a chest burster, which turns into an alien, which finds people to turn into eggs. A complicated ass life cycle, but like a understandable one.
Yeah. Perfect organism and all that.
Yeah.
Can't improve on that design.
Structural perfection matched only by its lust for crabs.
Yeah.
So this scene was filmed, obviously, for the theatrical version, but it was ultimately excised for pacing because they thought that it just kind of killed the momentum of the final chase sequence stone dead. And it sort of does, but useful having it there to explain the life cycle, I guess.
Well, its absence also kind of explains something else, which I think we're about to get to.
So here we just drop back into the regular cut. So Ripley climbs up a ladderway with Jonesy, looking around cautiously. She runs through corridors, looking around her as alarms blare and Mother continues the countdown. She peers around the corner, just as the alien bursts up from the floor. Dramatic sting!
Oh, that cheeky alien. Always turning up when you least expect it.
He's in the way! She drops the cat carrier and runs back the way she came as the alien slowly turns around the corner. So, I care so much about that cat. Jesus.
Just happy to throw it to the wolves now.
Ripley flees as the alien peers curiously down at Jonesy in his box.
Don't know why this film is so keen on making it seem like the Jonesy and the alien are in cahoots. Like mutual respect maybe between one ruthless predator and another.
I don't think the alien and the cat are in it together, especially as in the director's cut here, the alien hits the box and knocks it out of the way.
Right.
And do you remember I pointed out to you that the music kind of cuts weirdly at the end of that scene?
Yes.
Yeah. So they literally just took out the last 3 or 4 seconds of it, and then it just cuts to like some horns blaring.
Yeah.
And that's the bit where Jonesy the cat gets smacked out of the way.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe the alien just likes cats. Maybe the alien is just like, but however you are in my way. So.
Ripley runs desperately back through the ship. It's some good camera work here because she's just obviously being followed by a cameraman free-handing it to really heighten the tension.
Yeah.
She runs back into Mother's control room as the alarms blare and Mother counts off seconds. 25, 24, 23.
So, in the last episode of this, I was curious as to whether the timing, because we knew that the timer kind of starts pretty much on the dot of the start of this 8-minute segment.
Yeah.
Whether it would actually match the 5 minutes. And, well, in this case, we know that it's about 3 minutes since this 8-minute segment starts. So it's short. It's a bit short. But it is short. Well, first of all, I expected it to be long because that's the usual thing with movies. They say that you've got 30 seconds, but then there's like a 2-minute sequence. But it is short by a couple of minutes. It's about 3 minutes, and that is approximately as well short by the length of the deleted scene.
Yeah, mysterious. I do think that's more of a coincidence than anything else.
But I like to think that there's some attention to detail here, and Ridley Scott was just, you know what? If we have a 5-minute countdown, it's going to be 5 minutes.
Exactly 5 minutes. I don't know if I mentioned this before on the podcast, but I think we might have talked about it when timers came up last time. But my favorite one of these is in The Fifth Element, where the president of the universe says to somebody, "You've got 20 seconds to explain," and their explanation is bang on 20 seconds.
Nice.
It's a nice little touch. He says this thing even with a couple of dramatic pauses, and he nails it bang on 20 seconds.
I appreciate an accurate timer in a film, and that said, I do think some of those seconds that are being counted down were a bit long and not all the same length as each other.
Well, that's what you get with computers in the future. They just don't know how long a fucking second is. It makes a lot of stuff really spicy.
Yeah, I reckon the last 5 seconds was in fact about 8 seconds.
We get an interesting comp shot here of Ripley in the control room from far away, and you can see like sort of these spires in the middle ground as she works. And it's all like, obviously comped into one of the model shots, and it's very interesting to look at, but I'm not really sure what part of the ship this is supposed to be in. It's really unclear where where this whole thing is looking out into. Ripley desperately tries to undo what she's done, punching buttons and pushing columns down. She realizes she won't make it and pushes up the first levers in desperation, just as Mother says that time has run out. the alarms become more intense.
Really strict, with something like an overheating of a ship, you'd think there'd be a little bit of wiggle room.
Yeah, I was going to say pretty much the same thing. I'm surprised that a thing which seems to be relying on just setting the engine on fire is exact to the second.
You'd think it would be a bit like sell-by dates, right? Where you can probably use it a little bit afterwards, but they're putting the date a bit soon just to be on the safe side. You think they'd set the overheating cutoff to maybe a minute or two before it actually was, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, but what you're implying there is that Ripley does have a whole bunch of time now, and they've just gone, oh, how long will it take? Oh, approximately 5 minutes. I'll put the cutoff at 5 minutes, and maybe all the way up to 8 she would have been okay. It's just a naughty computer.
Yeah, the job's worth computer is just like, no, can't change it now. It's more. Yeah, more my job's worth that. I would have to fill out forms.
Already submitted the forms to incinerate the engine core.
Yeah, no, it's out my hands. Sorry, nothing I can do.
Ripley shouts aloud that she's turned the cooling units back on. Mother impassively keeps counting down to the explosion.
Mm-hmm.
So, periodically you see little glimpses of the countdown clock on like Mother screens with it's like a flashing red X with like the time counting down, and they jump around all over the place. If you go through and watch them all, they are all higgledy-piggledy. They are not consecutive countdown clocks at all.
Yes.
Ripley calls Mother a bitch and smashes one of her screens with the butt of the flamethrower.
If one of your end of the podcast questions had been who would next be called a bitch, I'd have maybe gone with the alien rather than Mother.
Do you want me to add that question to the list for season 3? Who will next be called a bitch?
No, you're all right.
Because that's going to be really awkward when we watch Sister Act 2. Back in the Habit. Does Ripley expect the ship to respond here? I mean, or is this just exasperation? Because it's very unclear if Mother can hear and respond. Because if they want to talk to Mother, they have to go into that fucking, like, nugget and type on that keyboard. That's
true. I don't think that, I don't think Mother would be able to respond. I think this is pure venting, and it's like that little moment that she had earlier where she was like, okay, I'm going to freak out for just a second because I need this, but then I'm going to get my shit together and solve the problem.
Back into the gas-filled halls, Ripley retraces her steps. She cautiously reapproaches the junction and finds Jonesy unharmed. Like, partially scrambled if you're watching the director's cut, I guess. She carries him through the open airlock into the shuttle as fire sprays at her from the corridor behind. I say carries because she just kind of flings him through the door. And again, I'll be like, at this point, I would be like, right, the cat. If the cat's still alive in that box when we get there, that's cool. That's a plus.
Yeah,
I don't care what happens to it in the meantime.
Yeah, I'm not going to worry about being too careful with the cat at this stage in the adventure.
Things here are really breaking down on board the ship. I mean, there's just like fireballs in the corridors. I suspect that maybe that 5-minute timer might have been more accurate than they were letting on. It is really weird though when you think about it, that this is just this whole thing is it's like the joke at the end of Portal, right, where you're in a room slowly filling with deadly neurotoxin that will kill you in exactly 10 minutes. And if you finish it in 9 minutes and 59 seconds, you're fine.
Yeah.
It's just that last minute that's the one that kills you.
Yeah.
Obviously there it's being played as a joke, but not so much here. I don't think it matters ultimately. I mean, it's only podcast nerds who will really pick that sort of stuff apart.
Well, maybe what's happening. Look, I've always said that I don't really believe in plot holes. I think most plot holes can be explained away just fine if you
Mm.
just like insert a few words.
Yeah,
Uh,
maybe there's like a shaped charge that goes off at 0.
yeah, maybe there's just something at the end that just kind of helps the reaction
Yeah.
along to make sure that it's exactly 10 minutes or something like that.
There's a tiny trained monkey in the engine core with one of those things that you use to strike a triangle. Ding! The lighting for this whole sort of explosion sequence comes in part from a scissor arc, which is an open arc of carbon rods being brought together with like thousands of volts of electricity running through them.
Mm-hmm.
They generate flashes and are very, very loud. And director of photography Derek Van Lint noticed that Ridley Scott had used the crashing noise they made as part of the actual explosions during the sequence.
Oh, speaking of noises, that's something I forgot to bring up earlier, actually, which is that there are a wide and rich variety of alarms during this whole
Oh,
segment.
it is all cowbell. Um, yeah. I've been mentioning blaring alarms, but not the quality, frequency, and variety of them. My favorite is the bit when you hit the 5-minute timer and the whoop whoops start joining in with everything else.
Yeah, they sort of go away after a while though, and the main alarm that you have for some time, apart from the kind of regular one that we've been hearing on several occasions, is this just kind of massive awooga kind of alarm that's going on in the background. It's like the sound of a uh, someone's breast being groped in a bawdy 70s comedy.
Jesus Christ, Peter.
That's what that alarm is.
That's actually what's happening off stage.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, Pete. I like to think that that the machine that was going whoop whoop just melted quite early on in the process.
Yeah, whoever designed this chip sure wanted you to know when something was going wrong and how wrong it was going.
I mean, this is pretty good, right? I mean, if I'm inside a tiny metal box flying through space, and that's going to explode in a handful of minutes, there's the possibility I was elsewhere taking a nap. I really want this to be, stressed. I want to like, all the lights, all the bells, maybe spray me with some steam.
Yeah.
With T-minus 1 minute to the destruction of the ship, Ripley sits at the console of the shuttle and starts flipping switches. They're those really satisfying sort of like clicky click switches that I really like.
Yeah.
We see Environ CTR Purge flash on the screen in red. And that screen is later seen in another Ridley Scott film, 1982's Blade Runner, when the spinners take off.
Nice.
People have said that this means that they're in the same universe, and I disagree.
Do you think it means they're the same prop?
I think it means someone had a screen which said Environ CTR Purge that they could flash on and off.
Yeah.
At best, this is a homage. I don't think they're in the same universe.
I do not think that either.
Outside, we see clamps released from the shuttle. Ripley pulls the straps tight on the chair, and we see the shuttle lowered down beneath the ship. With 25 seconds to go, the shuttle launches, fired out backwards underneath the ship. So the nose thrusters of the shuttle light up, and it shoots out backwards?
I guess.
Why do you think it launches backwards, Peter?
It's poor design on the part of the manufacturers.
There's a very cinematic answer to this question.
I don't know. I can't think why that would be. But probably so that they can look at the explosion. Maybe?
Yeah, there you go. I knew you'd get so you can see the ship explode through the windscreen. So yeah, we're jiggling back and forth with the ship like flying backwards underneath the Nostromo.
Fair enough.
The ship vibrates with Ripley inside. We see the Nostromo fly past outside the windows. The countdown keeps ticking down. 10 seconds to go, and she's completely clear of the ship. We see the Nostromo and the refinery disappear into the distance. At 1 second, the window is filled with white light as the Nostromo explodes. So, I couldn't actually find out how they did this effect, but we spoke about it in the green room, and it's you said it seemed like effects of the time, and like that, the Death Star exploding, that sort of thing.
Yeah, or maybe even like some sort of Close Encounters style thing where you feel like there's something that's being drawn here.
Yeah. There's actually some contention here in that the Nostromo seems to explode thrice.
Yeah, it does a little bit, doesn't it?
But I don't think it's a thrice-wise explosion. I think what happens is the ship explodes. A few seconds later, the refinery that it's towing explodes, and that's the bigger explosion.
Yeah.
And then we see a different shot outside of the refinery exploding.
Right.
So I think it's two explosions.
No, I think that's fine. Yeah, I figured it was just different bits exploding at different times. And yeah, I tried to have a closer look at this explosion the second time that we watched through this segment, and yeah, I think it's maybe some animation, but what it could also be, I think that the very last bit, where you kind of have those orange things streaming towards you, definitely looks like some sort of animation.
Yeah.
But the bits before that, where it's just kind of the distant explosions, looks like it could be some kind of light effect that's been blurred or something like that.
You hit the nail on the head there. I think that's what's going on. I'm reasonably sure it's just a brightening light, and then it slowly fades out with something squigglied on top.
Yeah.
Ripley lays back in her chair and watches the light and howling noise fade through purple to nothing.
And as we said at the end of this, it's a very, very neat segment, this.
Yeah, this one, like I jokingly said earlier that you could release this as a short film. I mean, it's got everything. There's a woman on a spaceship. If you know nothing about this, there's a woman on a spaceship. That seems to be on fire. She runs back to the computer to try to turn the alarm off after encountering some sort of weird alien, and then she gets onto a spaceship and flies away as the ship explodes. Like, wow, what? I would contend if indeed we were going to order the 8-minute chunks by which ones we think were best, and we're not going to do that, but if we did, this would be way near the top, I think.
I mean, I wouldn't personally put it near the top just on terms of how much I enjoyed the segment, but I would put it near the top in terms of how well it fit 8 minutes of storytelling. It's just a lovely little self-contained tale about a woman escaping a spaceship from an alien.
Yeah, and that's exciting because obviously that means that next week we're in the clear, right? It's just going to be credits.
We're apparently done, except you're about to ask me what happens next, and I don't think we're done.
You don't think? No, I'm going to ask you who's infected. A question that has increasingly made less and less sense as we've been going.
Well, I think that this little shuttle is infected with a little case of alien.
Shit. Yeah, so if you are just watching along in 8-minute chunks and you've never seen the film before, ruined.
Yeah.
One of the most exciting twists in cinema history.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'd call it that, but
I was just going to let you get away with that.
One of my favorite twists in a movie. There you go. So, even though we've kind of spoiled it a bit, Peter, what happens next? What do you think happens next? I think Ripley has a little shower, gets into bed, and is otherwise fine.
I think we're going to think for a few more seconds that everything is fine. But it turns out the alien is on the ship. Fuck. And didn't get exploded.
Oh my god. How rude of the alien to not stay on the bigger ship.
Yeah, so then there's going to be a final confrontation with the alien, which I believe the result of is that it's going to get blasted out of the airlock at the end of the film, and then she's going to go for a nice nap with Jonesy at the end.
Wow. Okay, that's like the next 2 episodes worth of stuff. I have to write this down. Hang on.
Like 2 episodes.
Yeah. 2 episodes left.
Wow. I thought the final one was just all credits.
It isn't. I checked. It's not.
Okay.
It's not all credits. Which again is just a testament to how little people they put in the credits of this movie.
Yeah, no. Well, in that case, yeah, no nap with Jonesy just yet. In the next segment, we're gonna get some sort of confrontation with the alien.
All right, I'll change it then. See, you think the alien's on the ship, and she will confront it.
Yeah, but probably not actually get rid of it yet, because I'm gonna say that happens quite soon before the end of it.
Yeah. In one of the innumerable alien ripoffs, there's, I can't remember what it's called, but listeners, if you know which film I'm talking about, write in. There is a bit where, the alien has been murdering everybody, continuously throughout the whole thing, and then they get it back on board. And it's still killing people, and then it turns into like a cute ET style thing. It's like, oh, it was just a misunderstanding the whole time.
Yeah.
Don't think this one's going to end the same way, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to redeem the alien.
No alien redemption arc. Who dies next, Peter? Are you sticking with the alien?
I'm sticking with the alien because, well, as we've seen, Dallas now is definitely dead.
Finally, we're done with Dallas.
Yeah, I suppose if you count the director's cut, then actually it was Dallas who dies next.
Yeah, that's true. Actually,
yeah.
I think we will take the director's cut for this, just for the purposes of giving you fewer points overall.
Why do you always want to deny me these meaningless points?
because you want them so badly.
But now that we're clear of that, I would say that most definitely we can say that the alien will die next.
Sucks to be him. A question that, again, possibly becomes increasingly meaningless as we veer inexorably into the last few episodes. What are you thinking of the film so far? You've watched 9/10 of it.
I mean, my opinion.
Would you stop watching? Would you stop watching here? You could.
Well, I mean, if I stopped watching here, then I'd assume that everything was fine. And as we say, it wrapped up quite neatly. So, so you could stop watching here and not feel like anything was lost, I think. But no, I intend to see this one through to the credits.
To the grim finale.
Yeah, no real change of opinion on the film. I still think that the opening of the film, the first hour or so of it, is just the one that draws me in the most, and the rest of it has been entertaining, but in a way that maybe feels a little bit less special than the rest of it.
It's hard to say, really, for me, what I would feel if asked to sum up the movie here. 16 minutes from the end. But yeah, I love Alien. I feel like it's got a pretty good conclusion. Like as we were saying, it's got a real slow build up, and then it's just rolling down the hill, getting faster and faster and faster.
Yeah.
Until, the ship explodes and you're like, the alien is defeated and we can all have a lovely rest now. We can relax. The movie's going to end soon. But you and I know different, don't we, Peter?
We do, because we've seen the film before.
Yeah, because we've both
I don't know whether that was clear.
we haven't, yeah. I mean, we haven't guessed the ending. Okay. Time to end this nonsense once and for all, I guess. Listeners, if you have any questions or comments, send us an email to 8minutemovies.co.uk/podcasts_email.
Yep, do that. And how can they reach you if you want to be contacted in person?
Did you notice that, what I just said was entirely gibberish and not an actual email address?
Wait, was it?
Yeah, it was just nonsense. I got into it and then I was just making stuff up.
You were saying it in such a confident kind of sing-song voice that I just took it at face value.
Wow, this is how little he listens to me when we're recording these podcasts.
We've done this wrap-up so many times before. I just take it for granted.
Podcast at 8minutemovies.co.uk. That's the real thing. There's no underscores in it whatsoever.
I didn't even hear you say underscore. I just tuned out through that whole email address because I'm not going to email it, am I?
tuned out through that whole hour and a half of podcast.
I'm not sitting here with a pen and paper thinking better write this down just in case I need to contact you, am I?
No, that is true. If you had feedback about the podcast, you could contact me in a number of other different ways. For example, you could call me on the telephone.
Yeah, I mean, as we've established, I know what the last three numbers of your telephone number are. That's how well I know I know you, and I know them because for some reason I spent years, even though I was a very good friend of yours, not saving you on my phone. And I just recognized you by the phone number that would always be coming up.
You are a strange fellow. You can be found on the internet at Kestrel Pie. That's Kestrel like the bird and pie like... Okay, so it's like the baked dish, but if you take off the exponential character. Yeah, there you go.
Pie like the irrational number, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'm Kieran J. Walsh on Twitter, and that is it. I don't have a catchphrase.
Yeah, and that's Kieran, like the name of Irish origin, but the version of it that starts with a K, and not the version of it that starts with a C. J, like the letter of the alphabet, and Walsh, like the name that has, I think, been corrupted from Welsh at some point. I think that's where that comes from.
Yeah, Kieran is an Irish name, which means little dark one. And Walsh, as you say, comes from Welsh ultimately, but it just means foreigner in this context. So my full name means Little Dark Foreigner.
It's an appropriate name for you in a way, thinking about your childhood. And
look, we're not having another episode of this podcast turn into pop child psychology in the last 2 minutes.
Well, you were we had this talk last time about how you were given all those knives one Christmas.
We are not talking about the knives.
But before we started this podcast, he said, "I'm holding a knife, Peter." How do you feel about that?
Oh, I'm cutting this out.
I'm saying it's not just me. It's not just.
You can try and throw me under the bus, but I wield the editing tools here. So
you know you're not cutting this out. It's too good as content.
Yeah, it's good content. You can't cut out good content. Oh, well, listeners, if you have any questions about knives, you can email us.
Who to contact.
And that gibberish I said earlier with backslashes and or whatever. Okay, goodbye. Goodbye, listeners. It's been a real pleasure. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.